Welcome to our video about the fascinating world of Pokemon and their placement on the Tree of Life. Today, we are taking a closer look at Butterfree and how it is related to Charizard, Blastoise, and Venusaur. Ready? Let's go! The last common ancestor of Butterfree, Charizard, Blastoise, and Venusaur is called Bilateria. Bilateria display bilateral symmetry at least in the larval stage, meaning there is a left and a right body half that are mirror images of each other. There are no additional planes of symmetry. In the adult stage, some organs may not be symmetrically formed, such as the human liver or the front claws of fiddler crabs. Adult echinoderms are secondarily radially symmetrical. All Bilateria originally have a front and a back end, as well as a mouth. In the course of evolutionary development, these features may have been reduced, for example in parasites. The main axis of the body runs through the front and back ends. In some groups of Bilateria, this original direction of movement has changed, for example, squid swim morphologically upwards or downwards. Adult Bilateria live mostly solitarily and freely movable. The main axis usually lies in the direction of movement. They actively search for food, with the development of a head region with a superior part of the nervous system, i.e., a cerebral ganglion or brain, playing an essential role. This event, known as cephalization, has occurred during evolution in various lines of Bilateria. Sessile and colony-living life forms are represented in a few groups of Bilateria, such as Camptozoa and Bryozoa. These also have filter feeding associated with this lifestyle. Bilateria split into the lines of Xenocoelomorpha and Nephrozoa. The latter split into Protostomia and Deuterostomia. Protostomia, in turn, split into the groups Ecdysozoa and Spiralia, and the Deuterostomia lead to the Chordata. The population of the last common ancestors of all bilaterians is called Bilateria. These animals had evolved a primary direction of movement forward. Consequently, a head region and a bilaterally symmetrical body shape developed. They could actively move their small, worm-like bodies with the help of muscles. The muscle tissues originated from cells of an embryonically formed mesoderm. About 800 million years ago, Bilaterians split from the remaining animals. This is suggested by phylogenomic studies with a molecular clock. The split occurred during the Neoproterozoic period of the Tunian. After that, Bilateria continued to evolve. According to the Nephrozoa hypothesis, Xenocoelomorpha and Nephrozoa separated. The latter eventually split about 680 million years ago during the Sturtian Ice Age into protostomes and deuterostomes. That's it for the last common ancestor of Charizard, Venusaur, Blastoise, and Butterfree. Now let's move on to a group that deals more closely with Butterfree directly. Lepidoptera, with nearly 160,000 described species in about 130 families and 46 superfamilies, form the second most species-rich order of insects after beetles era, along with flies. Approximately 700 new species are discovered annually. Butterflies are distributed on all continents except Antarctica. Butterflies undergo a life cycle with an unusual transformation. From eggs, flightless caterpillars develop, moving through shape changes and growing significantly through intensive food intake. They usually shed their skin several times for a larger one. At the end of the caterpillar stage, they enter a state by forming a harder shell, known as the pupa, which externally appears as a resting state. Inside the pupa, they undergo significant changes. They form wings and transform into the flying form known as butterflies. Butterflies take in liquid food through their proboscis, and a female and a male butterfly mate, fertilizing the eggs of the female. The females then lay the fertilized eggs, from which caterpillars hatch. The head of butterflies features prominent antennae, eyes, and in most species, mouthparts with a proboscis. The thorax bears the usually large and very delicate wings, which dominate the entire shape of the butterflies. Butterflies achieve a body length, excluding wings, of 1.5 to 100 millimeters. The largest butterfly is the owl butterfly Thysania agrippina from South America, with wingspans of 25 to 30 centimeters. The Queen Alexandra's birdwing, Ornithoptera alexandri, is the largest day butterfly, with wingspans of 20 to 28 centimeters. The smallest butterflies are members of the Tischeridae, with species having a wingspan of only 1.5 to 2 millimeters. The butterfly with the largest wing surface area is the atlas moth, Attacus atlas, from Southeast Asia. The structure of the antennae can be very different and is often a characteristic of the respective butterfly family. There are filamentous, clubbed, filamentous with a thickened end, sawtoothed, with protruding processes on one side, and combed antennae, bearing these on both sides, along with all possible transitions. The antennae often differ between the sexes, with males typically having more pronounced antennae. Butterflies can use their antennae to smell, some also to touch, taste, and perceive temperatures. Stimuli are received through small hairs, distributed on the antennae. Sawtoothed or combed antennae significantly increase the surface area, thereby enhancing the sense of smell. Males can detect the pheromones released by ready-to-mate females from a great distance. This is particularly important for butterflies living in very scattered populations or forests, where they do not encounter each other by chance. Females use their antennae to detect the appropriate caterpillar food plants. The mouthparts of butterflies are very specialized and modified compared to other insects. Their mandibles are greatly reduced. Only in the family Micropterigidae are they still used as biting tools. In most butterflies, the maxillae form two flexible half-tubes, connected by seam joints. This forms the proboscis between the two tubes, which the butterflies use to suck up their food. This food can only be liquid. Nearly all butterflies feed on flower nectar, plant juices, and other nutrient-rich liquids. When at rest, the proboscis is coiled under the head. In addition to the modified maxillae, butterflies have maxillary palps, which are reduced, and labial palps, which in some species are elongated and large, e.g., in the subfamily Libethini of the brush-footed butterflies. The palps contain sensory organs for touch and smell. The length of the proboscis varies greatly depending on the species. Hawkmoths, Sphingidae, have the longest proboscis. In the subtropical hawkmoth species Amphimia walkeri, the proboscis length is 280 millimeters. No other butterfly species has been discovered to surpass this length. This allows them to reach into the particularly narrow flower tubes of orchids. The proboscis of the death's head hawkmoth, Acherontia atropus, is very short but very strong. With it, the insects can pierce and suck honey from sealed beehives. Additionally, they can produce whistling sounds with it. In some butterfly species, such as the Saturniidae or the Amphidae, the proboscis is entirely reduced. Their only mouthparts are the unpaired lower lip with the labial palps, but they cannot take in food with them. These insects die shortly after mating. Their real life takes place in the larval stage. The Micropterigidae do not have a proboscis, but they can chew with mandibles and feed on pollen. On the lower lip of the caterpillar, there is a tubercle with the opening of the spinning glands, in which silk is produced in liquid form that solidifies after exiting into the air. The eyes, as in other insects, are compound eyes made up of up to 6,000 small individual eyes. Additionally, many butterfly species have a pair of simple eyes with which they control their day-night rhythm. Unlike diurnal butterflies, nocturnal butterflies exposed to large light variations have pigment cells in their eyes to regulate incoming light intensity. They are nearsighted, as they cannot adjust their visual sharpness to the object distance due to the compound eyes. Additionally, they see only pixelated images due to the facets. However, they have a large field of view and react well to movements. Butterflies also have a different color sensitivity compared to humans. They do not recognize red colors, but they are sensitive to ultraviolet light. Specifically, nocturnal butterflies are attracted to UV lamps. With their eyes, butterflies can see about 200 meters and move toward a flight target within this range. On each segment, there is a pair of legs. In many diurnal butterflies, the first pair of legs is reduced and used only for cleaning with their grooming spurs. The legs consist of the coxa, trochanter, femur, tibia, and tarsus. The tarsus, in turn, consists of 5 segments, with claws for holding on at the last segment. In some butterflies, sensory organs are located on the tarsi, allowing them to taste. The legs of the olive-brown cutworm bear thorns and large tufts of hair, presumably to distribute scents. The two pairs of wings are located on the two rear segments of the thorax. Butterflies can hear. Their ears are either in the rear area of the thorax or on the abdomen in a pit covered by a thin membrane. This membrane functions similarly to the human eardrum. Evolutionarily advanced nocturnal butterflies, such as owlet moths or tiger moths, are also sensitive to ultrasound, as their main predators, bats, use these signals for echolocation. Upon receiving an echolocation tone, the butterflies drop in flight to avoid capture. Tiger moths can even produce ultrasound noises. Since many of them are toxic, bats associate these noises with unpalatability and avoid the butterflies. Butterflies are often brightly colored. The coloration arises partly from pigments and partly from special surface structures that cause light refraction effects. The individual scales are always monochromatic. Their shape, however, varies greatly. The most common shape is shield-like, with 3 to 5 tips and a narrow stalk anchored in a depression at the end. Others are lance-shaped or circular. Some scales, usually in fields next to each other and equipped with tufts of hair, allow the release of scents through pores. These scent scales facilitate finding each other for mating. The scales are not necessary for flight. In glasswing butterflies, large areas of the wings are initially loosely scaled but become transparent and clear during the first flight by losing the scales. In some species, very rarely in males, the wings are completely reduced. They can only move by walking. This is the case in the family of bagworm moths. In some inchworms, there are species with shortened wings. There are numerous caterpillars that deviate from the standard structure. The earliest moths have both the first abdominal segments. Caterpillars have abdominal legs. Geometer moths lack the first 3 pairs of abdominal legs, which are reduced, and some owlet moths lack the first 2 pairs. In slug moths, the thoracic legs are reduced to tiny stubs. All other pairs of legs are also reduced, causing these caterpillars to move like slugs. The smooth caterpillars of swallowtail butterflies have a neck gland they can quickly evert when threatened, emitting an unpleasant odor for enemies. Similar eversible glands on the back are found in the caterpillars of certain Gelechioidea and Tortricoidea species. To protect against birds, parasitic wasps, and flies. Many caterpillars have spines or hairs. Spines are common in nymphalid caterpillars, while many tiger moth caterpillars are covered in dense hair. Many tussock moths have a distinctive appearance due to tufts of hair of different colors and lengths. These hairs can cause skin irritation in humans through toxins and often come loose when brushed against the grain. Even if the hairs are not toxic, they can cause itching and redness by penetrating the skin like many small needle pricks. The caterpillar of the oak processionary moth has over 600,000 toxic hairs that can cause allergies even when people are just near infested trees. Due to the many different predators of butterflies, various patterns have evolved on their wings for camouflage, deception, and warning throughout evolution. These patterns may look like animal eyes, mimic dangerous and toxic animals, or warn of their unpalatability or toxicity with bright colors. Eye spots are found on the wings of the peacock butterfly, the genus Satinea, and the neotropical genus Caligo. False eyes confuse predators and lead them to strike at the wrong place. The hornet clearwing looks remarkably similar to hornets. Mimicry of bird droppings is also a widespread camouflage method. Caterpillars, butterflies, and pupae not only look like bird droppings on the leaf surface, but they can also reinforce this impression with an appropriate body posture. An example of this is the elm harlequin. There are also butterflies with aposematic coloration, like the red underwing. When these butterflies rest inconspicuously on tree trunks, only their brownish-gray forewings are visible. But when startled and they take flight, their bright red hindwings become visible. Butterflies whose bodies contain toxins and are thus unpalatable to most of their potential predators warn them with bright colors. Many butterflies of the Danaidae family warn predators with bright colors, as do diurnal zygonid moths, which contain cyanide or other toxins. In many species of pierids, nymphalids, and swallowtails, the females mimic toxic butterflies of other families. Since males are chosen for mating by the females, they must be easily recognizable to the females. Therefore, the males retain the original appearance of the species and have not developed mimicry. Caterpillars also have many predators and have adapted just like butterflies. Caterpillars living on conifer trees usually have longitudinal stripes, making them seem to disappear between the needles. Theraphermata mimics the pine needles of its food plant with longitudinal stripes, and its head additionally resembles a bud in shape and color. Some caterpillars in the swallowtail family, Acronicta alni caterpillars, and some caterpillars of the genus Triloca have developed bird-dropping mimicry. Many geometer moth caterpillars mimic the shape of twigs for camouflage. When they sit upside down on a twig, they blend in as if they were flat like a leaf rather than thick like a caterpillar. Countershading, which hides the cylindrical body of the caterpillar, also serves as camouflage. Other geometer moths remain motionless, clinging to a twig with their hind end, and with their perfectly adapted color, they resemble a small twig. They even form bud-like thickenings. Nemoria arizonaria caterpillars have developed a seasonal dimorphism, meaning they look different depending on the time of year. In spring, they mimic the catkins of their food plant, an oak. In summer, they feed on the leaves and mimic the twigs they sit on. Effective deterrence of predators through the imitation of animal eyes has developed in some swallowtails and hawk moths independently. They usually have two eye spots and can also imitate small snakes through their body posture. An example of this can be found in hawk moths of the genus Hemeroplanes. Caterpillars that are toxic warn predators with bright colors, such as many species of the subfamily Danaidae, including the monarch butterfly. These caterpillars do not hide and are visible and undisturbed on their host plants. Other caterpillars, which are not toxic but exhibit similar coloration, mimicry, benefit from them. Adult butterflies usually take in only liquid food with their proboscis, mostly flower nectar. They visit many different flowers and are therefore important for pollination. Some plants with deep flower tubes can only be pollinated by butterflies. Other sweet liquids, such as plant juices, honeydew from aphids, and the juice of rotting fruit, are also consumed. The death's head hawk moth specializes in sucking out honey from beehives. On hot days, butterflies also like to drink water from small puddles. They do this to take in mineral salts. A few butterfly species feed entirely or partially on animal excrement, urine, sweat, and tears. Among the nymphalids, there are some species that prefer to suck on animal excrement and sweat, such as the purple emperor and the poplar admiral. The nocturnal moths Lobocraspus gracifusa, Arceophora sp., and Phyllodes fulvidorsalis stimulate tear production by irritating the victim's eyeball. Larger animals, such as large mammals and even crocodiles, are usually targeted. However, on Madagascar, there are no such animals, and since smaller mammals, like lemurs, can drive the moths away, the butterflies living there, like Hemiceratoides hieroglyphica, must switch to birds. This can only happen during the night. These moths have specially shaped proboscises that can slip under the eyelids of sleeping birds. Some tear-drinking moth species also like to suck blood from open wounds. In some other species, such as the meadow rue owlet moth and the subtropical species Calyptra eustrigata, Calyptra minudicornis, Calyptra orthograpta, and Calyptra labilis, the proboscis has been transformed into a piercing proboscis and can penetrate up to 7 mm into the host animal's skin. These butterfly species sometimes feed on the blood of certain mammals, including humans. They can also transmit pathogens like viruses. The caterpillars, which are completely different in form from the butterflies, also have a completely different diet. After hatching, they first eat the eggshell. Then, the caterpillars of most butterfly species feed on leaves, needles, flowers, seeds, or fruits of various plants, with many species being specialized and dependent on certain plants. Among these, there are also leaf miners, like the leaf miner moths, which eat leaves or needles between their upper and lower surfaces, creating characteristically shaped feeding tunnels, mines. Other butterfly caterpillars feed on organic waste, algae, lichens, or are predatory. Cannibalism can also occur among butterfly caterpillars when food is scarce. Some species are even zoophagous, such as the caterpillar of the Hawaiian Hyposmocoma mollicivora, which primarily feeds on very small snails that it glues in place with its silk threads. The caterpillars of some butterfly families live in symbiosis with ants. In Central Europe, some caterpillars of the blues live with ants of the genera Lasius and Myrmica. The caterpillar secretes a sugary liquid from glands on its back. This attracts ants, which do not kill the caterpillar as they do with other small insects, but only collect the sweet liquid and protect the caterpillar. The ants drum on the caterpillar's back with their legs to stimulate the production of the sweet liquid. In the last caterpillar stage, they carry the caterpillar into their nest. Here, it takes on the smell of the ants. It no longer lives symbiotically with the ants but becomes a social parasite, feeding on the ant brood and being fed by the ants as it begs like the ant larvae. Although it still produces a sugary liquid it secretes, does not compensate for the damage the ants suffer. In the nest, it pupates and overwinters, depending on the season. This allows these butterflies to be among the few that can survive in areas heavily populated by ants. In Mexico, the dice moth Anatole rossi lives symbiotically with ants. The ants lock the caterpillar in an underground chamber every evening to protect it from other predatory ants. During the day, they guard the caterpillar and fend off parasitic wasps, for example. Even during drought, the ants bring the caterpillar into an underground chamber where it can even survive forest fires. As a reward, the ants also receive a sweet liquid. Now let's take another look at the family that Butterfree might belong to. In my opinion, it's the Pyaridae. These butterflies are diurnal and, as sun and heat-loving animals, are often found in open-land habitats. They require a lot of liquid, which is why they are often seen in large groups at puddles and other damp spots. The eggs are spindle-shaped and mostly white, yellow, orange, or red. The caterpillars are usually oligophagous, feeding on cruciferous and leguminous plants. They pupate as girdle pupae, which are attached to a girdle thread and at the rear end without a cocoon. Which family would you place Butterfree in? Write it in the comments. In the Pokemon world, Butterfree probably feeds on nectar and other liquids from Vileplume and Gloom. Caterpie is likely hunted by Pidgeot and its pre-evolutions, and it would also be on the menu for Zubat and Golbat. In the next episode, we'll focus on Beedrill. You can probably guess which clade we'll discuss next. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and see you